welcome again to this YouTube channel, IT on Demand. So thank you all for those who have subscribed so far. Thank you so much, and for those who are yet to subscribe, um, it takes just one click to do so. And I noticed that some of you who have subscribed haven't turned on your notification bell. Please do that so that whenever these videos get released, you can always get them automatically on your device. So today, like I said, we'll be walking through how to install some of the requirements to work with Python. And we did establish in the last video that we need Python and we need an IDE. And we did say that for the IDE, we'll be using VS Code and PyCharm. So I just want to walk you through how to do this installation on Windows. For those of you who use Mac, you can just go over to the video that relates to the Mac OS. But for those of you who use Windows, stick with me here and let's do it together. So my assumption is that you have a web browser on your system. Just I assume that you have an internet connection on your system because you would need an internet and you will need a web browser. So a web browser, if you have Windows, you might have something like the Microsoft Edge, or maybe you installed Google Chrome, or you have Mozilla Firefox, and there are others too as well, but those are the three that are most common. So just open any of those browsers, web browsers, and if you open any of them, just come to this URL locator where you type in your URL address and just type python.org. And when you type python.org, it takes you to this place. When you get here, what I want you to do is to scroll down a little bit. And I want to believe you know how to scroll down because this is not a training on how to use the computer, right? All right. So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see this part which says download Python source code and installers are available for download for all versions. And I just want you to pick this latest. I'll click on that. And once I click, I see this. It says this is the second maintenance release and blah, blah, blah. If you want to read through all that, you can. But yeah, scroll down. And when you scroll down, you can see you now have different. Now look at this part where you have operating systems. Look for your operating system, in this case, Windows. And for Windows, you see that there are several. You have the embeddable package for 32, 64, ARM64. I don't know what bit your Windows might be, but you might have to check that to see what Windows, what bit your Windows is. So for me, it's 64 bit, and I'll just click on this 64 bit. And as you can see, it says recommended. And for the Windows installer for ARM64 chip, it says it's experimental. So I'll pick this Windows installer. And as you can see on this top right, it's actually downloading. And I think it's completed. Once that's done, and you've seen that download, just click on that download just the way I clicked on it. And it takes you here. When you get to this part of it, I usually want to pick this, add python.exe to path. And what that does is that it enables me to launch Python from anywhere within my OS. So, but again, it's advisable to use with caution, especially if you know that your system might be vulnerable to virus attacks. You might maybe not want to choose this. But if you have an antivirus installed and you're certain that things would be fine, or maybe you don't visit the internet regularly, or you don't click on links that you don't know anyhow. So that's just a side note. So once this is done, you can see it tells me install now, and that's just what I'm going to do. I'll click on that install now, and I see this pop-up window. I'll click yes, and I'll wait for it to complete its thing. And while that is working on, let's go ahead to PyCharm. So for PyCharm, I think I'll just search for it, PyCharm, and you can see it's from JetBrains, and I have it downloaded. What I want is actually the community edition, so why not just click here directly and just wait for that. Let's see what happens here. Still installing. You can see the progress here. Okay, so we go over Python, and here we have this. I'm going to maybe manage settings. I want to accept the selected. All right, so scroll down a little bit and look at this is what we want. So click on that one, and they have a whole lot of IDEs here for the PyCharm Community Edition. Now, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see different this thing, but I want you to notice here that this is free. This PyCharm Community Edition is free, which is why we are using it. This is commercial, and you have to pay for it. So just click this download. For what we want to do, this is just fine enough. And as you can see, this is free 30-day trial. This is not what we want. We want the community edition. So scroll down again. This is what we want. So take note of this. We want the community edition, not the professional. And once you've gotten there, just click this button, download. We don't need the ARM64. Like I earlier said, most systems that you have might be maybe the 32-bit or 64-bit. 64-bit is actually the most common. So just click this download button, and it tells you thank you for downloading. And as you can see right here, it's actually downloading. So let's see what happens to as a Python finished. It's still installing, and let's see this one is also still downloading. Yeah, the reason I'm doing this simultaneously is because I don't want us to wait to install all these things. So Python is installed, and I'll just close that. So how do I know that it's actually installed? Because it's not like it's an, if I look at this place and I type Python, you can see it here. I have 3.11, right? I earlier had 3.11 on this system. So, but this is also 3.12. You can see this is the one we just installed not too long. But another way to check what you have on Windows is, if you look at your keyboard, you have this Windows logo. Press that Windows logo on your keyboard and type CMD. When you type CMD, go to Run as Administrator and click Yes. Once you do that, just type in Python --version, and you can see that we now have Python 3.12.2 installed. So just to give you a quick recap, as I wait this other download, to use the Python interpreter the other time, we just typed Python and we were able to do so. If you look at the previous video again, welcome to programming, and enter, you get that welcome to programming. I'm going to exit out of this by using this exit, and of course I can just close this window as well. So I think PyCharm is done in downloading. So I'll click on that again, but I think it's still downloading. So while we are waiting for PyCharm to finish downloading, let's go to VS Code. Here we just do VS Code download. So type VS Code download there, and you can see download Visual Studio Code. Click that button. And by the way, the way I'm opening new tab is by just pressing this plus button here. So this is VS Code. Again, for those of you who use Windows, just come over to this place and look at this x64 that has a system installer. Or if you wish, you can also download from here directly. It doesn't make any difference. And as you can see on this side where it shows my downloads, it's downloading, and I think PyCharm is completely downloaded. So I'll click on PyCharm. Sorry, this video might be a little bit long because these installations take time. I clicked on PyCharm and I'm just waiting for PyCharm to launch. And while I'm waiting for PyCharm to launch, as you can see, PyCharm just initiated now. Look at it here. So while we wait for that, VS Code is much lightweight. So I'll click on VS Code and let's see. Okay, so PyCharm PC, I'll click yes. So now I have 2 installations. So let me do VS Code first, or let me start PyCharm actually first. So I'll click on next. You can leave the default as it is on your system. Just click next. And you can see create desktop shortcut. Yes, I want to create desktop shortcut. Update path. Yes, I would want to do that. Update context menu, open project as project. Yes. And what this does is that it allows me to right click and say I want to open that place. So I can also do create associations to .py so that whenever any Python file is on this system, PyCharm can automatically open it. I click next and then I click install. So while this is installing, let's set this aside and let's go to VS Code and let's see what we can do here. I accept the agreement on VS Code. I click next. I come here. I'll say yes, I want to create a desktop icon. I want to add the path. Again, it requires shell restart. And I'll just leave everything else as is. I'll click next and I'll say install. So setup is preparing to install Visual Studio Code on my computer. And this here is how to install all these things that we need. So in order not to take much time or for this video to be too long, I think I'll pause and then return when these installations are all set. Or I think I can just leave it. All right, so VS Code is set. So it says we can launch VS Code. So initially I had said I would just pause, but I didn't pause again because we need to do certain settings on VS Code. So I'll click finish here. And once I click finish, you wait for that, and VS Code is getting launched. And this is VS Code. I will say I trust the author, but of course, if this is not my own folder, I won't trust it. So in fact, I don't want to trust this folder because I want to open my own environment. So, but here is VS Code. So how can we use Python here? I would cover that in the next video, because what you will do now in using VS Code and setting up VS Code is similar to both Mac and Windows, and so I don't want to do these things separately. So I'll do another video. I'll make another video that talks about how to set up your VS Code, and see you in that one. For now, I'm just going to close this up, and PyCharm is a little bit heavier than VS Code, which is one of the differences. And so one thing I would say is that if you don't have much space or much memory on your system, just stick with VS Code. You'll be very much okay with what we want to do. But if you have much space on your device and you have much memory, I would also say you can install PyCharm as well. But like I said, there's no preference there's no reason for using one or the other. It's just that I think, in my own opinion, PyCharm is a little bit easier to use. So this is the final thing to do. Once we've installed VS Code and PyCharm, it requires you to reboot. So I'm not doing anything again. I would like to reboot now. So I can say reboot now, and then you click finish. But because I'm doing recording at the moment, I would want to stop the recording and do something. So I want to reboot later and finish. And just in case you have something you're doing on your system, don't click on reboot now. You can say you want to manually reboot later. It's about the same thing. So I click finish, and that will be all for how to set up the Python, the PyCharm, and VS Code. So see you in the next video